Reading through the Bible in 1 year, December 23rd, 2nd Chronicles 27 through 28, Revelation 14, Zechariah 10, and John 13. Jotham was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jerusha, daughter of Zadok. He did what was right in Yahweh's sight, just as his father Uzziah had done. In addition, he didn't enter Yahweh's sanctuary, but the people still behaved corruptly. Jotham built the upper gate of Yahweh's temple, and he built extensively on the wall of Ophel. He also built cities in the hill country of Judah and fortresses and towers in the forests. He waged war against the king of the Ammonites. He overpowered the Ammonites so that they gave him 7,500 pounds of silver, 60,000 bushels of wheat, and 60,000 bushels of barley. They paid him the same in the second and third years. So Jotham strengthened his positions because he did not waver in obeying Yahweh his God. As for the rest of the events of Jotham's reign, along with all his wars and his ways, note that they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. He was 25 years old when he became king. He reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. Jotham rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. His son Ahaz became king in his place. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. He did not do what was right in Yahweh's sight, like his ancestor David, for he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel and made cast images of the Baals. He burned incense in Ben Hinnom Valley and burned his children in the fire, imitating the detestable practices of the nations that Yahweh had dispossessed before the Israelites. He sacrificed and burned incense on the high places, on the hills, and under every green tree. So Yahweh his God handed Ahaz over to the king of Aram. He attacked him and took many captives to Damascus. Ahaz was also handed over to the king of Israel, who struck him with great force. Pekah, son of Remaliah, killed 120,000 in Judah in one day, all brave men, because they had abandoned Yahweh, God of their ancestors. An Ephraimite warrior named Zechariah killed the king's son Maaseiah, Azrikam, governor of the palace, and Elkanah, who was second to the king. Then the Israelites took 200,000 captives from their brothers, women, sons, and daughters. They also took a great deal of plunder from them and brought it to Samaria. A prophet of Yahweh named Obed was there. He went out to meet the army that came to Samaria, and said to them, "Look, Yahweh, God of your ancestors, handed them over to you because of his wrath against Judah, but you slaughtered them in a rage that has reached heaven. Now you plan to reduce the people of Judah and Jerusalem, male and female, to slavery. Are you not also guilty before Yahweh your God? Listen to me and return the captives you took from your brothers, for Yahweh's burning anger is on you." So some of the men who were leaders of the Ephraimites, Azariah, son of Jehohanan, Berechiah, son of Meshillemoth, Jehizkiah, I'm guessing, son of Shallum, and Amaziah, son of Hadlai, stood in opposition to those coming from the war. They said to them, "You must not bring captives here, for you plan to bring guilt on us from Yahweh to add to our sins and our guilt. For we have much guilt, and burning anger is on Israel." The army left the captives and the plunder in the presence of the officers and the congregation. Then the men who were designated by name took charge of the captives, provided clothing for their naked ones from the plunder. They clothed them, gave them sandals, food, and drink, dressed their wounds, and provided donkeys for all the feeble. The Israelites brought them to Jericho, the city of palms, among their brothers. Then they returned to Samaria. At that time, King Ahaz asked the king of Assyria for help. The Edomites came again, attacked Judah, and took captives. The Philistines also raided the cities of the Judean foothills and the Negev of Judah. They captured and occupied Beth Shemesh, Aijalon, and Gederoth, as well as Soko, Timnah, and Gizmo, with their surrounding villages. For Yahweh humbled Judah because of King Ahaz of Judah, who threw off restraint in Judah and was unfaithful to the Lord. Then King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria came against Ahaz. He oppressed him and did not give him support. Although Ahaz plundered Yahweh's temple and the palace of the king and of the rulers and gave the plunder to the king of Assyria, it did not help him. At the time of his distress, King Ahaz himself became more unfaithful to Yahweh. He sacrificed to the gods of Damascus, which had defeated him. He said, "Since the gods of the kings of Aram are helping them, I will sacrifice to them so that they will help me." But they were the downfall of him and of all Israel. Then Ahaz gathered up the utensils of God's temple, cut them into pieces, shut the doors of Yahweh's temple, and made himself altars on every street corner in Israel. He made high places in every city of Judah to offer incense to other gods. He angered Yahweh, the God of his ancestors. As for the rest of his deeds and all his ways, from beginning to end, they are written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. Ahaz rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of Jerusalem. But they did not bring him into the tombs of the kings of Israel. His son Hezekiah became king in his place. Now Revelation 14. Then I looked, and there was the Lamb, standing on Mount Zion. With him were 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. I heard a sound from heaven, like the sound of cascading waters, like the sound of rumbling thunder. The sound I heard was like harpists playing on their harps. They sang a new song before the throne and before the living creatures and the elders. But no one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. These are the ones who have not defiled themselves with women, since they remained virgins. They are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They were redeemed from humanity as the firstfruits of God and the Lamb. No lie was found in their mouths. They are blameless. Then I saw another angel flying high overhead with the eternal gospel to announce to the inhabitants of the earth, to every nation, tribe, language, and people. He spoke with a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. Worship the one who made heaven and earth, the sea and the springs of water." And a second angel followed, saying, "It has fallen. Babylon the Great has fallen. She made all the nations drink the wine of her sexual immorality, which brings wrath." And a third angel followed them and spoke with a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast and its image, and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he will also drink the wine of God's wrath, which is poured full strength into the cup of his anger. He will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the sight of the holy angels and in the sight of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment will go up forever and ever. There is no rest day or night for those who worship the beast and its image, or anyone who receives the mark of its name. This calls for endurance from the saints, who keep God's commands and their faith in Jesus. Then I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Write, Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on." "Yes," says the Spirit. "So they will rest from their labors, since their works follow them." Then I looked, and there was a white cloud, and one like the Son of Man was seated on the cloud, with a golden crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. Another angel came out of the temple, crying out in a loud voice to the one who was seated on the cloud, "Use your sickle and reap, for the time to reap has come, since the harvest of the earth is ripe." So the one seated on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was harvested. Then another angel, who also had a sharp sickle, came out of the temple in heaven. Yet another angel, who had authority over fire, came from the altar, and he called with a loud voice to the one who had the sharp sickle, "Use your sharp sickle and gather the cluster of grapes from the vineyard of the earth, because its grapes have ripened." So the angel swung his sickle at the earth, and gathered the grapes from the vineyard of the earth, and he threw them into the great winepress of God's wrath. Then the winepress was trampled outside the city, and blood flowed out of the press up to the horses' bridles for about 180 miles. And there are all the notes. Let's move on now to Zechariah chapter 10. Ask Yahweh for rain in the season of spring rain. Yahweh makes the rain clouds, and he gives them he gives them showers of rain and crops in the field for everyone. For the idols speak falsehood, and diviners see illusions. They relate empty dreams and offer empty comfort. Therefore the people wander like sheep. They suffer affliction because there is no shepherd. My anger burns against the shepherds, so I will punish the leaders. For the Lord of armies has tended his flock, the house of Judah. He will make them like his majestic steed in battle. The cornerstone will come from Judah, the tent peg will come from them, and also the battle bow and every ruler. Together they will be like warriors in battle, trampling down the mud of the streets. They will fight because Yahweh is with them, and they will put horsemen to shame. I will strengthen the house of Judah and deliver the house of Joseph. I will restore them because I have compassion on them, and they will be as though I had never rejected them. For I am Yahweh, their God, and I will answer them. Ephraim will be like a warrior, and their hearts will be glad as if with wine. Their children will see it and be glad, and their hearts will rejoice in Yahweh. I will whistle and gather them, because I have redeemed them. They will be as numerous as they once were. Though I sow them among the nations, they will remember me in the distant lands. They and their children will live and return. I will bring them back from the land of Egypt, and gather them from Assyria, and bring them to the land of Gilead and to Lebanon. But it will not be enough for them. Yahweh will pass through the sea of distress and strike the waves of the sea. All the depths of the Nile will dry up. The pride of Assyria will be brought down, and the scepter of Egypt will come to an end. I will strengthen them in Yahweh, and they will march in his name. This is the Lord's declaration. Now John 13. Before the Passover festival, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Now it was the excuse me. Hi. Verse 2. Now when it was time for supper, the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, Simon Iscariot's son, to betray him. Jesus knew that the Father had given everything into his hands, had been already past tense, before he goes to the cross, that he had come from God, and that he was going back to God. So he got up from supper, laid aside his outer clothing, took a towel, and tied it around himself. Next, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, and to dry them with the towel tied around him. Again, this is something that the lowliest of servants do, the washing of feet. He came to Simon Peter, who asked him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, "What I am doing you don't realize now, but afterward you will understand." "You will never wash my feet," Peter said. Jesus replied, "If I don't wash you, you will have no part of me." or part with me. Well, Simon Peter then said to him, Lord, not only my feet, but also my hands and my head. One who is bathed, Jesus told him, does not need to wash anything except his feet, but he is completely clean. You are clean, but not all of you. For he knew who would betray him. This is why he said, not all of you are clean. When Jesus had washed their feet and put on his outer clothing, he reclined again and said to them, do you know what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are speaking rightly, since that's what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, have taken the lowliest place, you also ought to wash one another's feet. Not literally, he's saying you must be willing to take any level. You must serve one another in every possible capacity. For just as I have given you an example that you should do just as I have done for you. Truly I tell you, a servant is not greater than his master, and a messenger is not greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. I'm not speaking about all of you. I know those I have chosen, but the scripture must be fulfilled. The one who eats my bread has raised his heel against me. I am telling you now so that before it happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe that I am he. Truly I tell you, whoever receives anyone I send receives me, and the one who receives me receives him who sent me. When Jesus had said this, he was troubled in his spirit and testified, truly I tell you, one of you will betray me. The disciples started looking around at one another, uncertain of which one he was talking about. One of his disciples, the one Jesus loved, which is how John writes himself into the text, was reclining close beside Jesus. Simon Peter motioned to him to find out who it was he was talking about. So he leaned back against Jesus and asked him, Lord, who is it? Jesus replied, he's the one I give the piece of bread to after I have dipped it. When he dipped the bread, he gave it to Judas, Simon Iscariot's son. After Judas ate the piece of bread, Satan entered him. So Jesus told him, what you're doing, do quickly. None of those at the table knew why he said this to him. Since Judas kept the money bag, some thought that Jesus was telling him, buy what we need for the festival, or that he should give something to the poor. After receiving the piece of bread, he immediately left, and it was night. When he had left, Jesus said, now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I'm with you a little while longer. You will look for me. And just as I told the Jews, so now I tell you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new command. Love one another. Just as I have loved you, you are also to love one another. By doing this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Lord, Simon Peter said to him, where are you going? Jesus answered, where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow me later. Lord, Peter asked, why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you. Jesus replied, will you lay down your life for me? Truly I tell you, a rooster will not crow until you have denied me 3 times. And that is all the text, and that is all the notes. So, that said, that's it for today. All right. Yeah, that's it. Cool. All right. Hopefully, we'll be back tomorrow. God willing. Behold, the word of the Lord.